Gareth, we've talked previously about the importance of being really well prepared to face into the no's or the potential no's that you may get during a meeting with one of your customers. Talk to us about some of the techniques of preparation specifically that will equip you with the right kind of skills.
Yeah, there's a number of things that you can do. We'll talk about some of them on later videos, but here's one super smart thing that is really useful, but often quite rare in terms of are people doing it. So if you think about some of the previous videos, we've spoken before about asking questions before your story to find out what's important to your customer, getting into your customer's world, finding out about them and then delivering your story. Well, one of the things that's a really super smart thing to do is think about the questions that you've prepared, and okay, let's stress test them almost with some of the objections that you might well get. So then you can then start to think about, well, if that's a likely objection, how well do these questions start to lean into that potential no, and therefore potentially shrink it or eliminate it completely, and thereby giving it eliminating the opportunity for it to come up later.
Okay, so this sounds to me like you're comparing, in effect, your preparation with what you think might come up to see whether it matches. And then I suppose then actually fine-tuning it or maybe creating new questions to address the issue if you don't think you've done that already. Is that right?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, so just to help us out here, give us a couple of examples of how you might do that. Make it real for us.
Okay, yeah, so what do I mean by that? So let's take a retail example. A common objection, a common no that might come up in a retail environment is, for example, lack of shelf space. A very likely objection comes up an awful lot, whether whatever category you're dealing with. Well, if you know that that's likely to come up as a potential objection, then okay, so what questions could we ask? So it's about asking the right questions that almost give the opportunity and suggest change. So a question like, how's the category performing, or how's the current range performing for your perspective, or how important is it to target a particular consumer group? Now, if the range isn't performing very well, or the category isn't performing as well as the customer would like, that suggests change, and therefore it makes it much more difficult to say afterwards, well, we haven't got the right space. Well, if you haven't got the right space, but it's not performing, there's some leverage there. So there's just one example. Another one might be, and of course this comes up very frequently, is the commercial. Money, cash. It's very commonly an objection. The deal's not good enough, that type of thing. Well, again, let's have a think about this. All your core elements of your proposal are delivering commercial value. So I think there's some things there, making sure that we're asking enough questions around the core elements of our proposal, and therefore getting some of the value that those, what we call reasons to say yes or features, are going to bring, and get the customer to talk and recognize those. That therefore starts to, again, give you leverage. Well, if the commercials aren't right, well, hold on a minute. We spoke about before about how important it was that this was delivered and it was going to deliver this return for you. Just how does that compare with the commercials? So again, it's shrinking the no or shrinking the opportunity for it to come up.
And just finally, Gareth, what would you say to people who might challenge you on that and say, well, I don't really want to explore that with the buyer or my customer because I know it's an issue and I don't really want to bring issues to the table? What would you say to people who would be wary of that?
Yeah, people often are wary about leaning into the problem, and that's the key to it. If you're not leaning into some of the potential issues, and don't get me wrong, we're not looking to create problems here, but for any proposal that I've ever looked at, as we've said in previous videos, there's normally a range of around probably less than 10 as a cluster. There's a fair chance that 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them are likely to come up, and therefore asking questions about them isn't directly bringing that onto the table, but it is suggesting that if it does come up, therefore we can shrink it. And there's one thing that we do know is that if there is a genuine objection and we do not lean into it, it's either going to take another 1, 2, or 3 meetings. So you may as well lean into it right now. And there's also something there about, well, if it's not said, it's still an objection. So get that onto the table. So just because you don't talk about it doesn't make it go away.
So be brave and ask the questions, even though you may be opening up something you don't want to hear. It's still there. It's worthy of exploration, so you can figure out how to reduce it or overcome it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Great advice. Thanks, Gareth.